Hello there, welcome to yet another First Strike. It is that time of the year after all. In this season of new releases, there are several franchises that we can expect to see just about every year in some form or another. Sometimes it's DLC, a new entry, the odd remake, but there's always something coming. You got Call of Duty, something from Mario, and Pokemon. Those come around the same time, you can just about set your calendar to those. But recently, Ubisoft has also ensured that we have some new DLC or a new game in the Assassin's Creed franchise every single year somehow. This year is pretty fascinating though, as Assassin's Creed alone got about 5 new games announced earlier this year. But I still don't know anything about the mobile games if they're out, and we got some time yet for anything else besides that, leaving the game in question to discuss this time is Assassin's Creed Mirage. What's most interesting here is that they stated out the gate that Mirage was made to feel more similar to the games before Origins, which turned the gameplay into more of an RPG. Basically, this is supposed to be a smaller scale, open world stealth action game with much more emphasis on blending in with the crowd on busy streets. So, did they pull it off? Does this feel like classic Assassin's Creed, so to speak? Let's see what I can learn. Assassin's Creed was one of the first M-rated games I ever tried, and I was pleased with the semi-realistic approach to the setting with true historical inspirations, if not quite accurate enough to feel truly educational. I don't know, I don't do any extra research on these games. But the idea of hiding in plain sight rather than off in a bush or a shadowy corner was also very unique and interesting, and worked well enough to be satisfying. This game also helped pioneer parkour-like climbing and exploration in video games, and created what is now known as the Ubisoft open world model. You know, climb tower, sync up your map, find all the little things in the world, wash, rinse, repeat. Though a bit tiring after almost 2 decades of that model, when it works, it really works. Anyway, I wouldn't call myself a major fan of this series, but I do have nearly all of them, and not just thanks to PlayStation Plus Premium. And I've even finished several of them. This one piqued my interest when they said it was meant to be a return to form. I'm curious to see what that looks like following what appeared to be a successful pivot to more RPG-like game design. But before that, we have a story. Unfortunately, the prologue does seem to imply some sort of modern-day story narrated by William Miles, Desmond's dad. I don't know if there's any more to that side of things yet, but the gist of it kinda sounds like they want it to go somewhere finally. They still don't know where it's going yet. Kinda like Marvel Phase 4. Possible hot take aside, the story proper, as in the historical era assassin story that we actually want to see, takes place in Baghdad, circa 873, when the area was under the rule of the Abbasid Caliphate, and it is here that I begin to profusely apologize for the inevitable gross mispronunciations, but I can only try my best. We are playing as Basim ibn Ishaq, who, let's be real, is basically Aladdin. Almost a carbon copy. Sadly, Basim's Jinni is a horrifying nightmare creature who haunts him in his sleep, not a hilarious blue cartoon. This means that instead of making a wish to escape his life as a thief in the streets of Agrabah, Basim instead looks to the Hidden Ones, aka the Brotherhood, if you missed that hint, as a way for him to make things better for himself and the downtrodden that he desperately wishes to help. I don't think I need to spoil anything further here. My conclusion is that Basim is one of the most likable assassins we've had in a real long time, like maybe only behind Ezio or Edward Kenway in overall appeal. The setting is very cool too, as I know these developers go to enormous lengths to ensure their characters and settings are realistic, but still likable and relatable, regardless of cultural differences. The game looks real good. I don't know how to judge a game that's meant to look realistic anymore, but there are definitely moments that show Arabian craftsmanship beautifully. When Aladdin gets his sword from the blacksmith, when Basim gets his sword from the blacksmith, I immediately said, wow, that thing looks awesome! The music is also a bit too much like a movie score to stick out in the sense of humming it later, but it does sound authentically Arabian to my ignorant ears at least, and very exciting. I honestly don't know how much more I can say about it, but I will note that the game does feel like a classic Assassin's Creed with its visuals, and sadly in this case, not in a good way. I've had all sorts of glitches, nothing huge, but very noticeable throughout, and especially this one cutscene at the end of the time I spent here that skips like 10 frames at once a couple times. And yes, I have the graphics set to performance mode. Can't help feeling, as many times as I've already said, that either developers have yet to figure out how to make it work right every time, or the hardware manufacturers exaggerated its abilities. Basically, I'm trying to get used to the frame skips on PS5, or in this case, Xbox Series X, as I expect they will continue for at least a few more years yet. Kind of a shame, but I personally feel like I should know better by now. Now the section I care most about. Even if a game has a lame story or looks and sounds poor, I can tend to forgive that if the gameplay is solid. I'm also of the opinion that gameplay is the most important part of any game made, that it should be fun to play regardless of what kind of story or art direction is intended. In my experience, very few Assassin's Creed games have had enough problems for me to consider them a bad game. The worst I've played are actually the first two, and before you freak out, I'll remind you all that the PSP had a game called Assassin's Creed Bloodlines that filled the gap from Assassin's Creed 1 to 2. I'm not crazy, Assassin's Creed 2 is incredible. And it's not like those first games are bad per se, but they are badly dated. Anyway, I'm rambling, but the main question about the gameplay here is whether it feels like the series used to before it went back to the ancient civilizations. I'll just say it right away, my answer is yes. I think it feels like the series never missed a beat, or more accurately, didn't make that pivot. There are parts that are obviously influenced by the RPG games, mainly the UI, but I'm starting to talk myself in circles here. Okay, so the prologue definitely illustrates a desire to recapture the stealth part of Assassin's Creed that some people might say the RPGs lacked. How did they do this? No weapons. I didn't have a weapon for at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And this also serves to introduce Basim as the street rat he is, just a really good thief taking on jobs for the hidden ones, wanting to curry their favor. This section also demonstrates the idea of running over rooftops or hiding in a crowd as the best ways to get things done, which really goes a long way to feeling like those older games. After you get past the inevitable tragedy, he enters training with the hidden ones where you finally learn combat and get initiated. Combat in this one feels like a real nice balance between the old and new, with parries being important for weaker enemies and trickier maneuvers for the armored guys. Once you get your first assignment and return to Baghdad, congratulations, you've reached the game proper, title screen and all. One of the best things this game does is finding a good balance in tutorials. Most of them are pop-up windows you can just close immediately and read them again later if you're confused. But some of the most basic Assassin's Creed staples don't get anything more than that. Basically, while they used to have you, say, follow an NPC up the tower to teach you how to synchronize and expand your map, all they do here is mark it on your map, let you climb, maybe that quick pop-up you will all ignore like I did, and they let you go. You could ignore the tower entirely if you wanted to, you weirdo. But like any Assassin's Creed, the game is dotted throughout with all manner of little things to do and collect. What's satisfying to me is that sometimes you have to do more than just mark the thing, go find it, pick it up. It's not even lame stuff like just paying a musician to distract the guards so you can walk in and take the thing. Let me give you a couple examples. I was trying to find this chest that's right near the entrance of a heavily guarded prison. After clearing the mission I had there, I looked around for a while. Eventually, I found a barred door with a chest behind it. So I look around a little more and see that the other side is covered too, but it has a hole. So I try to climb in, that doesn't work. I looked for another way in. Nothing. Eventually, I realized the hole is there so that I can throw a knife at the other side of the door to break it open, and that worked like a charm. I think a little goes a long way in these open world games, so as long as there's a good blend of gameplay to go with the desire to find the thing, I'm pretty happy. In terms of how to handle restricted zones, it feels very similar to the old games. I had this point of freeing prisoners at the harbor, and while I didn't quite clear it unnoticed, I got real close, and it felt just as good as it used to. One of the neat ways the story missions are structured is that they're kind of treated like a detective case. You got hints and markers to help you find what you're looking for, but that doesn't quite spell it out. Even cooler, when I got to the first full-on assassination, it gave me very little direct information on how to handle it. All it told me was, look for distractions. I had to use my eagle vision and my literal eagle, Enkidu, because both of those systems are in this game, which is very cool. I had to use both of those to find things that would help me clear the mission. And while I would have happily tried all available options, once I did one of those things, the target was vulnerable, and I took him out. So yeah, this game really feels like old AC games, and that includes a few unfortunate side effects. Basically, Assassin's Creed has long been, I'll say, impartial with some of its controls. I'll explain. You ever been climbing a tower, trying to get to a handhold that's definitely in your reach, only for your assassin to leap clear off the side to his death? Or how about leaping across the rooftops, free as you please, only to miss the obvious platform directly in front of you in favor of leaping to a lower edge, now forcing you to climb back up? Yeah, that inexplicable baloney is still here. I don't think that's ever going to go away, and I can't imagine the absurd man-hours required to fix every little interaction like that, so in the end, I guess Assassin's Creed is just gonna do what it do. I have not seen anything even remotely game-breaking or over-the-top like Unity, but it seems like you should know to expect that randomness here too. Just letting you know. Honestly, I'm really into what's being offered here. I haven't played enough of anything beyond Black Flag to really say what games are better than what, but it does feel like what Assassin's Creed would have become had they not made Origins or anything after. I don't think those games are bad at all, but like with my Zelda games, it's nice to revisit classic concepts. Basim is a great character. Baghdad is a cool setting, and is still fun to approach a target from amidst a crowd, then quickly sink back into the shadows. The few performance hiccups don't come anywhere near damaging the experience, and since this map is in fact much smaller than the last few, it might not scare away players who aren't ready to dedicate a year of their life to a single game. I think if you liked the series in the past, but got scared away by Unity, or didn't like the new style of the games, this will feel like seeing an old friend again. So there's my thoughts on Assassin's Creed Mirage. I might just finish this on the tiny amount of spare time I give myself. It is very cool. As always, please tell YouTube I'm cool with a like, be a nice change for me to be cool, and comment with some other games you want me to talk about, and subscribe to see more. I try to get at least one video in a week. Also, if you really like me, consider checking out my Patreon. I'd love to spend more time on these videos. Now if you'll excuse me, I have about a week or so to decide what I want to cover first for the next First Strike. Spider-Man 2 or Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Ooh, a week might not be enough time for that. But I'll see you soon either way.